Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my masterclass. Thank you for those who attend religiously. I really appreciate you, and I hope that you're walking away with some great information. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future masterclasses. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome, and good morning to my LinkedIn crew. So, for those of you who are here for the very first time, welcome. And if you're wondering, well, who is Kathy Valetti? I am the founder of Motivate with K.A.T. That is a training company for admissions advisors and the enrollment leadership team. I have served in higher education, specifically admissions, for over 16 years. And I know that what you guys are doing is not easy. Okay. So I create online training courses and I also have live training for your teams. I'm also the host of EdUp Career School's The Scoop, and that gives me the opportunity to meet with every single person involved in the enrollment process, from our graduates, admissions, marketing, career services, financial aid, academics. I believe that it's very important for people to have for people to have an outlet so that they can really talk through some of the red tape, in higher education, and so that we can come up with a plan on how to fix the system one day at a time. All right. So this masterclass is only going to be available for 24 hours. If you want to watch this after today, you have to make sure that you head on over to YouTube at Motivate with K.A.T. and subscribe. The other way is by going to my website at lessons.motivatewithkat.com so that you can watch this masterclass in the future. All right, so today I want to talk about a very important topic. It's actually a very disheartening topic, and it's the turnover in higher education, specifically admissions. And we have to find a way to fix this. I mean, when we talk about 10, 16 years ago, right? There was turnover, but it was kind of involuntary. You're talking about advisors who, unfortunately, it wasn't a great fit for them and they couldn't meet the expectations. So that led to different types of conversations where, unfortunately, you had to let them go, right? And there was a small percentage of people who left, for other reasons. But when we talk about the past couple of years, the turnover is no longer involuntary. You have advisors that are walking out for a lot of different reasons, so many different reasons. And I have communication with so many advisors over the years, and they're all saying the same stuff. They're talking about lack of acknowledgement, unattainable expectations without the training and support to meet those expectations, right? Lack of respect. Come on. I mean, these are things that as leaders, we can catch ahead of time. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over the top four because there's a lot of reasons, unfortunately. But I pulled the top four, okay, that I want to talk you guys through because this can be fixed and this can be avoided. Because here's the problem: if we continue to lose advisors, our students are taking the hit because your admissions department is the engine that drives your entire school. So if you don't have admissions advisors who's really motivating and inspiring your students to take that very first step, to a great future and a great career. All right. So here are the top four. One, as I mentioned, unattainable expectations without the direction on how to actually reach those expectations. It actually leads to the pressure to enroll. And we all know what happens when you have advisors who unfortunately are just enrolling because they're afraid that they're not going to be employed. All right, if they don't do so, it hits retention, right? And now we have a bunch of misplaced students who should have never been enrolled in the first place. But your advisors, they need to meet the expectation because you're throwing the number out there without any type of direction. The second thing is micromanagement. All right. Micromanagement is the quickest way to break trust with your team members. The third thing is lack of acknowledgement. Your advisors work so hard. They work so hard and they deserve empathy. We're always training, right, about how to show students empathy. You have to get to know your students. You have to know their backgrounds, know their circumstances, yet still it doesn't apply when it comes to your team members. You have to make sure that their cups are filled so that they're able to fill the cups of their potential students, right? And the fourth thing is irresponsible leadership. Look, this has been a trending topic for months now. And it's unfortunate that there are so many people who don't understand the difference between a leader and a boss. All right, that's about 10 different webinars. So I'm only going to give you a short list of how we can actually overcome that. But let's start with the unattainable expectations. My question to the leaders: how are you breaking down these class start goals? Now, there are some schools who do not give individual expectations, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? But how are you actually handing out your goals? Are you using convergence? Are you using historical convergence? You can't give everyone on your team the same exact expectation, right? If you have a tenured advisor who's been in the game for 10, 15 years, and then you have someone who just came on 3 months ago, you can't give them the same goal, right? But just to let you know, these new peeps, they are kicking butt, my tenured people, right? But you have to know who is on your team, know your team members. Also, when it comes to your class start rates, are you using historical class start rates? If you are accustomed to coming in at 75% as a start rate, and then all of a sudden in February, your team hits 90 and you're like, yes, here we go. Do not use 90 again. That was a one-time thing until you get consistent with coming in at a 90% start rate. You have to use the historical start rate, because if you don't, you're automatically setting your team up for failure. Okay, another thing when it comes to reaching those expectations, how often are you meeting with your team? When you give out a goal, right, or an expectation, are you meeting with those team members every single week to make sure that they're actually succeeding? You have to make sure that you're having those one-on-ones every single week so that you can go over the class start, so that you as a leader can jump in and say, you know what, who is your, high, let's see, who is your list that we may have to cancel a couple of people. Let me jump in there and help you. Or you may have to come up with a different plan for your advisors. But the problem is, if you do not communicate with your team the entire time, and now we're at a week before the class start, it is too late to turn that around. And your advisors, unfortunately, have already failed. So when it comes to those unattainable class start rates, you have to make sure that you're giving them a plan. Give them some type of plan to work with. All right, I understand. This is my expectation. I have to bring in this amount of students the first day. All right, how am I get there? How am I actually going to get there? You as a leader, you already have to have that plan. All right. Here's the second thing: micromanaging. Okay, this is the quickest way to break trust with the members on your team. My leaders out there who work for brick and mortar, it is creepy for you to be walking past your team's offices every 2 seconds and peering in to see if they're on the phones or if they're talking to a student. My question to you is, if you have to do that every couple of minutes, why are these people working for you? Why did you hire them? Okay, a check-in is totally different, because in every school, I hope you guys have your advisors who are giving in their forecast for the day. They have to have some type of plan, right? Because if you don't ask for a forecast for the day, what's going to happen? Your team is just going to come in, they're going to do the same thing all day, keep their head down and dial until they get somebody on the phone. That's not a really good plan. So what the forecast should be is what they expect to do for the day, how many lives they want to change, right? So if they're saying to you, I want to change 3 lives today, I want to do 3 enrollments, they have to follow up with how are they going to do that? Do they have about 5 appointments that are scheduled for the day? They have a list of brand new leads that they have to work. They have some feedback, some follow-ups. Based on that plan, now their forecast should make sense. Okay, so don't allow your team to also, keep throwing out the same forecast every single day for the hell of submitting a forecast, and they're not meeting that expectation every single day. So when it comes to trusting your team and having check-ins, let's say, for instance, you do have somebody who said, you know what, I'm going to forecast 3 because I have about 5 appointments today before 3. It's 2:30 and not one soul has walked through that door, right? That's an opportunity for you to go and speak with that advisor. You pull them aside and you're like, hey, Kat, so I know you forecasted, 3 enrollments today. And you said you had about 5 interviews scheduled before 3 o'clock. It's 2:30. So, let's talk about that. Is there anybody that you want me to call Have you gotten in contact with any of them? Now that's your opportunity to actually come up with a different plan so that they can reach that expectation for the rest of the day, because it's still pretty early, right? But the communication piece is really important. Micromanaging and checking is two different things. My online schools, I've spoken to so many different executives who work for online, and I totally get it. You don't have the opportunity to walk past someone's office, but this is why you have to be even more involved if you're an online school. If you have a CRM where you are able to see if your team is actually dialing, and you see that it's been 5 minutes, please do not get on the phone with that person. Please do not email them. Please do not text them and ask them what's going on. It's been 5 minutes. Maybe they're in the bathroom. Maybe they went to get a drink of water, or maybe they just needed to take a second because they got off the phone with a student whose situation was so deep that they had to get mentally prepared again so that they could get on the phone. Give your people some time. When you're sitting on top of people all the time and you're like, why aren't you dialing? Why aren't you dialing? It's the quickest way for someone to say, okay, all right, I've heard enough, right? Trust your people and let them know that you are there for their benefit. It is so important. Okay. The third thing is lack of acknowledgement. For those of you who have been in the game for a long time, I know that you've heard tenured advisors say you were only as good as your last enrollment. I actually heard someone say that a couple months ago. It is the absolute worst thing that you can hear from an advisor. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a quick lesson on what an advisor goes through. For those of you who've never worked in admissions, whether you're in financial aid, academics, career services, marketing, here's a quick rundown of what your advisors go through. So we have two different scenarios here. You may have schools who are really, lead rich, right? They have so many leads that their advisors don't even know what to do with, right? Because they're given too many leads that they can't even handle and work properly, right? But then you have other schools who are kind of dry when it comes to leads. So you have the entire team working the same lead list, and that may create some friction. But nevertheless, your advisors, they need to at least make 200 plus dials every single day, especially if you're not interviewing. And I know some advisors are probably looking at me cross-eyed like, what? Come again? But 200 plus dials every single day, because law of averages says the more dials that you make, the more opportunity to get in contact with more people, right? So your advisors, they're listening to voicemails. They're listening to people who are rude to them. People are hanging up. They're listening to, I'm not interested. You don't have the program that I offered. And no way, shape, or form are they interested in learning anything else about any of the program that your school actually offers, right? How about you're in the middle of an interview and you have them meet with financial aid because you realize that they've attended a few schools and now this person is in default. Or you're talking to someone and at the ending of the interview, they find out, you find out that they're a dependent student and their parents are not supportive. We all know what happens with these dependent students. If mom and dad are not on board, why are you even still talking to them? We have to make sure that we find out the situation and get that parent or guardian on board. Otherwise, there is no enrollment, right? How about you're interviewing a student and then it gets to the paperwork and now they have to come back another day. So now you have a be back who's never coming back. Or for online schools, you guys are on the phone from the very beginning through the entire interview. So now you spent 45 minutes on the phone with the student. They've determined, yes, I am super excited. All right, so let me send you the application here. Click, the phone disconnects. I don't know if it was a bad signal. I don't know if this person's phone died, but you just spent 45 minutes of your day on the phone. And guess what? That student is not even coming back. You can't even get them back on the phone. But our advisors, they still need to get back on the phone and keep going. On to the next one. Continue to follow up on those people, though, but you have to keep going. This is what your advisors are going through. When that student hits financial aid, please think about what it took for an advisor to just be able to inspire one single person to take the next step in a positive direction for themselves or their family. So, with all of that said, your advisors don't deserve any type of acknowledgement. We have to get away from, I'm paying you to do a job. So, I mean, why do I have to keep motivating you? That's the problem. Everyone wants to feel as if they are doing a great job. And what happens when people start to feel as if they're not performing? It hits their confidence, and all of a sudden they say, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm way over my head. This is not for me. And a lot of this could have been avoided. Show your team some type of acknowledgement for the hard work that they are doing. I say this all the time. Celebrating those small wins is critical to building a dynamic team. Those class starts, they're coming again, right? So some of you guys may have modules like every 5 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. That's fine, right? But how about after a class start, you as the leader say, all right, so tomorrow for lunch, everyone is meeting me in my office, or everyone is going to go to the break room. I'm buying lunch. For online schools, there's something that you can do so that you get everyone involved and you give your team a chance to breathe and celebrate. That's so important. You will be surprised how something so small can rejuvenate your team and then make them want to go out there and do even better than the last class start. But unfortunately, what's been happening is as soon as your advisors finish a class start, guess what? They get an email. Well, here's your start expectations for the next 5 weeks. And it's like, oh my gosh, I was barely able to hit this number. How the heck am I supposed to hit this now? And once again, no directives on how to even reach that number. Eventually, your advisors, they are burnt out and they're saying there is a better way and there are better jobs out there. And the student takes a hit because now there's no one to talk to them. Becky said, great points here, Kathy. Thank you, Becky. We have to keep the positive energy and motivation going so that they can provide the same thing for their students. I think that is a point, Becky, that we miss so often, right? Because look, when it comes to admissions, yes, it is a business. Yes, when it comes to revenue, your admissions team, they drive the boat for everyone, right? But at the same time, this is a people industry. And I think that we have to get back to the point where we understand, yes, it's a business, but it's not about the numbers. It's about the people. And if you're doing the right thing at the very beginning, guess what those people are going to do? Because they trust you. If they trust you, guess who else they're going to trust you with? Their friends and their family members. There's a better way to grow your schools, right? But in a lot of cases, your advisors, they only need some motivation. They only need some directives on how we're actually going to get there as a team. All right. Here is the last thing. Whew, irresponsible leadership. Now, like I said earlier, this is about 10 webinars in itself, right? But when we talk about irresponsible leadership, my leaders out there, if you're called to leadership, this is a responsibility. Okay. This is not a job where it's like, whoo, okay, now I can pass this work on to somebody else. You know, when you have a team that you trust, you know, now you're able to get more work done, right? Now you're able to do what you want to do as far as inspire your team and drive activity in a positive way. But when you're talking about leadership, you know, holding on to toxic employees because they're high performers, you lose so much more when you hold on to one toxic employee and you have 6 employees who can be trained, who are coachable, who may not be as advanced as this person, but they're willing. There's a huge difference there, right? If you have toxic people that are on your team, guess what? Pay attention to the rest of your team that's watching. You're about to lose them. And I've seen this happen so many times, and I want to admit, in my opinion, when I talk about a high performer, I do not believe in measuring an advisor's success based on the number of enrollments that they can bring in every day. Because that's a topic all by itself. Anybody can enroll, right? But at the same time, these high numbers that you're bringing in, how many of these students are quality, right? And when I say quality, I'm talking about they're paired to the right program, right? They're enrolled for the right reasons. The school is the right fit for the student, and the student is the right fit for the school. How many of those enrollments are making it to the first day of class? How many of them are graduating? How many of them actually gave your instructors hell the entire time that they were enrolled in your programs, right? But we label those high rollers because of the work that they're able to push up front, right? When I think of a high roller, I'm thinking of someone who's able to inspire a student who's actually going to stick. But at the same time, they act with integrity, they're compliant, they're team players, and they understand that there's no I in team. That's a high roller as far as I'm concerned. However, so many years have passed by and we're still confused as far as what a high roller is. If you have someone on your team who is very disruptive, it's not worth it. The first thing that you should do is pull them aside and explain the situation. Give them a chance, train them, let them know what's going on by using the build, break, build method. Build them up, then talk about those opportunities, but then end on a positive note. If that doesn't work, it's time to cut. Get them out of there. There's so many people in the world who want to be here for the right reasons. The second thing is playing team members against each other. We are not in junior high school. Leaders, stop talking to employees about other employees. It is so unprofessional. And look, what's in the dark always comes to light. All right, we have to stop those bad habits. The third thing is your delivery. All right, the people on your team, they are not your 2 or 3-year-olds that are running around in the background. They're adults. All right, so give them the respect that is due. If you have to have a hard conversation with someone, really check the tone of your email, check the tone of your voicemail, check the tone of your text. And when they're sitting in front of you, make sure that you have a plan ahead of time on how you're actually going to address that employee. So many people have said that they've left admissions because of the way that they were treated. I mean, come on, you're in leadership, right? Lack of empathy. Now, we spoke about this earlier, right? We spoke about this earlier when it comes to showing empathy to our students, but why doesn't it apply to the people on your team? You know, when you talk about your team, these are people who have blood that's running through their veins, right? They have real problems, they have real issues. If you know your team members, you'll be able to pick up on if something is off. So that you can say, Kat, come talk to me for a second, because the way that you said good morning, something was a little off. What's going on? And sometimes they only need that outlet to vent and get it off their chest before they go back out there and really start winning again. We need to get away from the I'm paying you to do a job, so leave that drama at the door. They are people, and certain things, depending on what the situation is, cannot be left at the door. You know, sometimes they just need a breather, or they need to talk it through with you, because now it shows that you care as a leader. You have to show empathy to the people on your team. And the last thing is lack of grace. Oh my goodness gracious. You have to make sure that you show your team grace. Forgive them. People make mistakes, right? But here's the other thing. Sometimes people make mistakes because they were never told in the beginning how to do the task. So who does that really fall back on? Not the employee. It actually falls back on you, right? My leaders out there, I get it. There's a lot of stuff that's going on, but please stop managing your team based on how you feel for the day or how you feel about that individual for the day, because your team should never be put in a circumstance where they're afraid to come to you because they don't know who they're going to get today. You know, there's something that they want to discuss with you, or they feel as if they're struggling when it comes to their performance, but they're like, ooh, how does she look today? You know, everyone is in a room and they're like, should we talk to her now? That should never be the case. You should always be that person where your team feels comfortable coming to you and talking about the areas where they need growth. And as a leader, you have to have these one-on-ones with your team every single week. It's very important, because that's not just your opportunity to talk about expectations, right? That's always going to be there. But it's your opportunity to do a wellness check, to find out where your advisors are here and here. Do they even still want to be here? Because that's where quiet quitting comes into place, because nobody's paying attention. So now your star player goes silent. Now the person who was inspiring so many students, all of a sudden their performance is faltering and you're wondering what's happening. And this has been coming for a long time, but nobody was paying attention. It's also an opportunity to talk about their goals. You know, you may have people on your team who want to advance. And that's another reason why so many people are leaving, because there's a ceiling. There's nowhere to go. So they're like, well, I want to grow, but there's no place for me to grow here. So they go there, right? But you're not going to be able to catch on to this if you do not have these conversations. If someone wants to be promoted and you don't have that space in your campus, well, train them to go out there. Leaders promote other leaders. All right. So don't keep people just because there's nowhere for them to go. I've had advisors who's come to me and said, you know what? I want to be a director. And I'm like, all right, well, unfortunately, we don't have that open here, but I'm going to train you on how to be one. And they've gone out there to be some amazing DOAs, right? So that's what leadership is all about, being able to build people so that they are independent, not codependent. That's very, very important. All right. So make sure that you're following those 4 tips, because we got to get to the point where we stop losing some amazing people. All right. If people want to grow, that's different. Those are great reasons to be able to leave a company, but it should never be because of toxicity. It should never be because of irresponsible leadership. It should never be because I'm given a goal and nobody's telling me how to actually reach those expectations. Come on, these are things that we can get in front of. And it has to stop, because our students need your admissions people. So we have to find a way to hold on to them. All right. So I'm just going to revisit those 4 topics. Remember, giving unattainable expectations without the training and support. All right. The second thing is micromanaging. If you don't trust your people, don't hire them. That's the bottom line. The third thing is lack of acknowledgement. Celebrate those wins with your team. I don't care how small it is. Somebody got to a certain amount of dials, celebrate it, because it builds their confidence and it makes them feel good about themselves. Okay. And irresponsible leadership. Come on, check yourself. Leaders, think of how you would want to be addressed or treated if you were in their shoes. Okay. And act as such. These people are relying on you. All right. So here's a couple things before we go. Remember, this is only available for 24 hours. So if you want to watch this or share this with anyone, make sure that they go to YouTube at Motivate with K.A.T. so that they can subscribe. If you follow my podcast, all of the past episodes you can actually watch on my YouTube as well. And there are tons of short reels on my YouTube that are fun, but they're very educational, where your advisors can watch them and say, oh my gosh, I can apply that on the phone right now. Okay, so that's Motivate with K.A.T. The second thing for my executives, if you need admissions training, I know that your director of admissions works super hard. This training actually complements what they're already doing. All right, so I have about 3 slots left for live training. So if you need live training for your team, please DM me. But also, the way the program works, every advisor gets their own login, and it's 1 year unlimited access. Some people could complete it in 4 months, some take an entire year. It doesn't matter. But every single person, they have access to the platform for an entire year. Okay, that is made up of skits, presentations, training videos. It's a lot of fun. And for my director of admissions, if you're brand new to the game, or if you're thinking, I need to brush up on some of my skills, I have a leadership training called EDU Reverse Framework. You can find both of those on my website at lessons.motivatewithkat.com. All right, here's my final words for you. In any position that you hold, I know sometimes it gets to the point where you're like, I'm way over my head and I'm just ready to throw in the towel. I don't want to do this anymore. Right? But you have to understand that each of you have a skill. Each of you have something special, something that's unique about you. And your gifts do not belong to you. They're for other people. There are thousands of people out there who need exactly what you have. So those days when you start to feel like this is just not working out, I feel like I'm hitting a wall and I want to do something totally different. Think about the thousands of people who are going to be missing out on what you have if you throw in the towel. All right. There's always a way. Sometimes we just have to slow down, because in everything that we do, there's so many moving parts, right? So sometimes you just have to say, all right, let me take a break and I need to reevaluate a couple of things. But always know that everything that you're doing is for a purpose. So think about that when you get to the point where you're stressed and you're like, you know what, forget this. Think about all the people who are waiting to hear from you, who are waiting for you to lead them. All right. And you'll be able to know exactly where you need to stand at that point. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining today. I really, really hope that you took some great tips away. And I can't wait to see you at the next masterclass. Let's make today amazing. Bye,